As a researcher, my primary interest for the last, almost 4 decades now, have really been on issues of educational inequality. And that has a lot to do with having grown up in the South and having experienced real segregation and all-black schools up through the 12th grade, and then going to undergrad school in a desegregated college. So that fueled my curiosity and interest in trying to understand what could be done to change the pattern of inequality with regard to access to quality schooling. More recently, I've come to really appreciate the importance of high-quality teachers. One of the things that growing up in a segregated system in Richmond, where I did, was it wasn't just the kids in the community that was segregated, but segregation worked in such a way that many of the people who were my teachers were exceptional in their own capabilities and competencies and intellect. And as a consequence, those are people I had as teachers. So I had a math teacher, Mrs. Harrington, who taught us in high school, and then she walked down the street to Virginia Union to teach college students. And many of my teachers, following the desegregation of schools after Brown decision in 1954 and after the 1964 Public Accommodations or Civil Rights Act, many of those teachers I had actually went on to teach at the university level. So I have an English teacher who is on the faculty at Maryland Eastern Shore. I have a biology teacher who went on to medical school. So there were lots of examples of that. So we had exceptional teachers, but it was at the expense of those educators not being able to have early on the careers that they were well prepared and very capable of pursuing. At one point, I wrote an article about the importance of having teachers who knew me, knew my circumstances, knew my conditions, knew the challenges. And they taught me to a model of achievement that prepared me for a world that didn't exist when they were teaching me that way. So I've always appreciated teachers and teaching and learning. So I come to this research about producing better student outcomes by understanding, on the one hand, that teachers can do exceptional things. We had a captive audience at the time, and teaching in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, in large part, teaching was an honorable profession, a highly regarded profession. Teachers, doctors, and lawyers, that's how we used to name them. And so Linda Darling Hammond writes about this. The esteem in which teachers are held in other societies is still quite substantial. So our teachers are not less well prepared, nor are our teachers less capable in some sense, in any sense. But society has changed in a number of ways. So my teachers lived in my community because of segregation. They knew our communities. They had not just an introduction to those communities through textbooks or through videos, but they had real-life experiences. They knew the families. So there are lots of ways in which, as sociologists, we talk about the way teachers could reach out and exercise some social control over kids because they knew cousins, uncles, nephews, nieces. And there wasn't the kind of transience that communities like Champaign, the turnover rate in communities like Champaign is quite high. So teachers don't have that same kind of fundamental knowledge of the communities in which they teach. In many places now, especially in urban places, teachers can't even afford to live in the same communities that their children, the children they teach, live in. So there are real challenges that teachers face in terms of having the same kind of sociocultural knowledge of the child's environment and context that would enable them to impact the child differently in addition to working on the child's academic skills. Gary Orfield and I have worked together on a number of school desegregation projects and efforts, and we were having a meeting trying to design an instrument that would enable us to assess the benefits of diversity in classroom, an instrument that would be administered to kids. And Patricia Gandara was also a participant in the meeting, and she told this wonderful story about an awards program at the end of a middle school year, and how in a school that was diverse in terms of the student population, all of the academic and intellectual awards went to white students, and almost none of the academic awards went to either Latino or African American students. And many of the awards that did go to them had to do with sort of the extracurricular things. And as this proceeded through the award ceremony, the Black and Latino parents kept shuffling, and there were mumbles and rumblings and so forth. And eventually, many of the parents of color began to leave. And the teachers were just not cognizant of it, not aware, and not understanding why the discomfort that parents of color had with the program. So Patricia explained to them that, don't you realize symbolically what you've done is to say, these are the folks who are the learners, these are the folks who are something else, these are the kids who are something other than that. And we talked about how that sense of this is normal, there's nothing unusual about it. That's the conception that those teachers had. That there's nothing unusual about African American students or Latino students or Asian students not getting these other awards, these academic and intellectual awards. And so that's where I began to think about how normal it is for us to see certain disparities and not be troubled by them because of what the media tells us, because of what our segregated experiences allows to persist in terms of stereotypes about who can be a learner and so on. I think it affects gender, so that we don't expect women still to be outstanding in STEM areas. We're still struggling with those issues and topics and trying to make a difference there and trying to do the research that informs us about what makes a change there. To disrupt that and to actually have teachers who will see a pattern and will look at it and interrogate it rather than accept it. There are reasons why each of us feels more or less efficacious in different contexts and settings. And as an expert witness in a school deseg case in Kansas City, a part of the data that I received as one of the experts appointed by the school district, I had received, well, not by the school district, by the plaintiffs. One of the things that I had received was surveys they'd done of their teachers that use these teacher efficacy scales. And so I thought, and did a little reading on the notion of teacher efficacy. And the items actually referenced the extent to which the individual teacher felt that they were comfortable teaching low-income students, a variety of students, students of color, or that they perceived that their colleagues were. So what I was able to do was essentially to associate teacher efficacy with student performance in their schools. So what we were able to find was a meaningful and statistically significant correlation between teacher efficacy and students' test scores. The more efficacious the teachers felt, the better the test scores. One of the things I think we have to assess is how we go about helping teachers feel more efficacious working with a much more diverse population. The U.S. school-age population is going to be increasingly diverse. If we don't make a substantial effort and meaningful progress in reducing poverty and improving the ability of a working family to have a living wage, we're going to have a lot more, or a substantial percentage, of free and reduced lunch kids in lots of our schools. Teachers need to have a different understanding of what those kids' capabilities are and their potential, so that the teachers actually believe that they can, in fact, make a difference.